So one of the things that we thought we should do today, because we're heading into the first soliloquy. And by the way, let me just mention this. I thought a lot about what Sandy Robbins had brought up and Jim had questioned about the soliloquies and whether they lent themselves to the action or not. One of the things that I started to think further on, and I think Sandy, you alluded to it also, is we get to see Hamlet's journey through those soliloquies. I mean, all of those soliloquies bring us to those final decisions that he made. We get to see his thought pattern, his meditations, he lets us in on that. So I think they're essential to the action of the play, actually. I think that, and I think we mentioned this last week too, an action comes out of them. He doesn't just think and put it away. Yeah, go ahead, Sandy, were you going to say something?
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to share something that I assisted Peter Hall for a while,
Yeah.
and Peter said what was to me a very useful thing about these particular soliloquies in Hamlet. He said there's two plots moving forward which then converge. There's Hamlet and the court and his revenge and the ghost, and then there's Hamlet's inner journey about the meaning and purpose of living at all.
Yes.
And they then converge. And if either of them is missing or outweighs the other, the play is diminished. And that's always been useful to my thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the more you spend time with the play, the more evident that becomes, particularly when you start focusing on the soliloquies, because you can get wrapped up in, the ghost and the court and all of that. But once you start looking closely at the soliloquies and what Hamlet goes through and shares with us, no one else in the play, he shares it with us, we get to go on that journey with him. I'm looking forward actually now of seeing, I would almost like to take all of them out and just do the soliloquies together to see, to see how that works. But at any rate, it made me think further on them. And since we're heading into them today, I thought I'd bring that up. One of the things we want to do today, and we're mixing it up, Randy, if you remember, we said earlier that when we became involved with this project, one of the suggestions Randy had was that everybody who was participating gets an opportunity to do any of the roles, because he wanted to make sure we were focusing on the play and not one particular role that we would be responsible for playing. And so that's why I asked everybody to take a look at Hamlet's first soliloquy. But I also want to begin today to bring us up to that soliloquy and I've asked Liz if she would do Hamlet. I've asked Michelle if she would do Claudius, and I've asked Randy to do Gertrude. Lee, I asked to do Laertes. Ben, I'm going to ask you to do Polonius. And Sarah, if you would do Voltimand. And I think we'll just take it from the beginning and bring it up to the soliloquy. Okay? And then we'll go from there. And if you're not in that scene, if you could just pull out, that would be great, so we can focus on.
We are talking about the first.
Your mic is off. Sarah's mic is off.
Thank you, Larry.
Sure.
I didn't even notice that, so thank you.
How do I take myself off screen here?
It should be a thing at the bottom that has a mic and a video.
Click on the camera on the bottom left.
Okay, got it.
Are we all ready?
Yes, we are.
There's Hamlet. Though yet of Hamlet our dear brother's death the memory be green, and that it us befitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe. Yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance for ourselves. Therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress of this warlike state, have we, as 'twere, with a defeated joy, with one auspicious and one dropping eye, with mirth in funeral, and with dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole taken to wife. Nor have we herein barred your better wisdoms, which have freely gone with this affair along, for all our thanks. Now follows that you know young Fortinbras, holding a weak supposal of our worth, or thinking by our late dear brother's death our state to be disjoint and out of frame, colleagued with the dream of his advantage, he hath not failed to pester us with message, importing the surrender of those lands lost by his father, with all bonds of law to our most valiant brother. So much for him. Now, for ourself and for this time of meeting, thus much the business is. We have here writ to Norway, uncle of young Fortinbras, who, impotent and bedrid, scarcely hears of this his nephew's purpose, to suppress his further gait herein. In that the levies, the lists, and full proportions are all made out of his subject, and we here dispatch you, good Cornelius, and you, Voltimand, for bearing of this greeting to old Norway, giving to you no further personal power to business with the king, more than the scope of these dilated articles allow. Farewell, and let your haste commend your duty.
In that and all things will we show our duty.
We doubt it nothing. Heartily farewell. And now, Laertes, what's the news with you? You told us of some suit. What is it, Laertes? You cannot speak of reason to the Dane and lose your voice. What wouldst thou beg, Laertes, that shall not be my offer, not thy asking? The head is not more nature to the heart, the hand more instrumental to the mouth, than is the throne of Denmark to thy father. What wouldst thou have, Laertes?
Dread my lord, your leave and favor to return to France, from whence, though willingly I came to Denmark to show my duty in your coronation, yet now I must confess, that duty done, my thoughts and wishes bend again towards France, and bow them to your gracious leave and pardon.
Have you your father's leave? What says Polonius?
He hath, my lord. I do beseech you, give him leave to go.
Take thy fair hour, Laertes. Time be thine, and thy best graces spend it at thy will. But now, my cousin Hamlet and my son,
A little more than kin and less than kind.
how is it that the clouds still hang on you?
Not so, my lord. I am too much i' the sun.
O good Hamlet, cast thy knightly colour off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lids seek for thy noble father in the dust. Thou knowest 'tis common. All that lives must die, passing from nature to eternity.
Ay, madam, it is common.
If it be, why seems it so particular with thee?
Seems, madam. Nay, it is. I know not seems. 'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath, no, nor the fruitful river in the eye, nor the dejected behaviour of the visage, together with all forms, moods, shows of grief, that can denote me truly. These indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play, but I have that within which passeth show. These but the trappings and the suits of woe.
'Tis sweet and commendable in your nature, Hamlet, to give these mourning duties to your father. But you must know, your father lost a father, that father lost his, and the survivor bound in filial obligation for some term to do obsequious sorrow. But to persever in obstinate condolement is a course of impious stubbornness. 'Tis unmanly grief. It shows a will most incorrect to heaven, a heart unfortified, a mind impatient, an understanding simple and unschooled. For what we know must be, and as is common as any the most vulgar thing to sense, why should we in our peevish opposition take it to heart? Fie! 'Tis a fault to heaven, a fault against the dead, a fault to nature, to reason most absurd, whose common theme is death of fathers, and who still hath cried from the first course till he that died today, this must be so. We pray you throw to earth this unprevailing woe, and think of us as of a father. For let the world take note, you are the most immediate to our throne, and with no less nobility of love than that which dearest father bears his son, do I impart towards you. For your intent in going back to school in Wittenberg, it is most retrograde to our desire, and we beseech you, beg you,
Let not thy mother lose her prayers, Hamlet. I prithee, stay with us. Go not to Wittenberg.
I shall in all my best obey you, mother.
Michelle, your mic is off.
why, 'tis a loving and a fair reply. Be as ourself in Denmark. Madam, come. This gentle and unforced accord of Hamlet sits smiling in my heart, to my heart, in grace whereof no jocund health that Denmark drinks today, but the great cannon to the clouds shall tell, and the king's rouse the heavens shall brew it again, re-speaking earthly thunder. Come away.
Liz, would you go right into the monologue, the soliloquy, please?
Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon gainst self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seems to me all the uses of this world. Fie on't! Oh, fie, fie! 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this. But 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion, to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember why she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet within a month, let me not think on't. Frailty thy name is, woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Niobe, all tears. Why she, even she, oh heaven, a beast that once discourse of reason would have mourned longer, married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month? Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets! It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Good. Okay, I think if you'd like to come on again, we can. Let me ask a question. When you hear that soliloquy, what needs to be happening in that scene to bring Hamlet to that? It's our job to tell the story, all right? We all know, so many people know the play, but I will tell you there's an equal number who don't. So our storytelling has got to include all that's necessary for that soliloquy to come out. I'm posing the question, and I realize I'm doing it on the spot here, but there's an awful lot that's happening in that scene other than character study, other than nifty politician, brilliant politician, weak woman, whatever label you want to put. There's an action in that scene. There are actions in that scene. There's activity in that scene. There's circumstances that have to be there in order for Hamlet to go into something that actually cries out for suicide. This is the suicide speech. Are we agreed? This is it.
Yes.
You can quarrel over to be or not to be, but I'm telling you, this is the one. If there's any point in this play where he wishes he could die, he says it quite literally here in the very first two lines of that soliloquy. What needs to be in place for that to happen? And let me ask you, as I'm asking that, is it there? Can you hear it? Can you feel it? Can you see it as people acting it? Are you following what I'm asking?
Yeah. I think what's important is that the relationship between Claudius and Gertrude obviously irks him terribly. And so that needs to be worked on in the scene, I would think, that there should be lovingness and stuff that, that horrifies him because of how she behaved with his father. I think that's one thing that must be there.
The other thing that I think is that Claudius is actually kind of preempting him. He's corrupting him. He is saying, "You're my son." He's actually smothering him with praise to a certain time. Sometimes he berates him because he's mourning too much, but he's also lifting him up and saying, "You're my boy." And so Hamlet looks even more ungrateful, and I'm sure the court can't understand why he seems to not be really fully accepting Claudius's outward show, at least, of love and esteem. So, I mean, that's a very difficult line for somebody to walk when somebody's being really nice to you in certain ways, and you can't truly hit back at them because otherwise you look ungrateful and crazy even.
Yeah.
Right, so he'd rather be dead.
Yes, and I understand where you're coming from. I guess what I'm asking for here, Hamlet is going to tell us this is an unweeded garden that grows to seed. He's going to say everything's awful and it's decaying. It continues to decay, to grow to seed. He's saying that it's a corrupt world. It's a disgusting world. It's stale, flat, unprofitable, not of any good. We can play it so that this is all in his mind, and we can make a decision based on, well, that's, it's Hamlet, it's his father. But I'm telling you, it happens in the scene. And I think it's so exciting that it happens in the scene. And a lot of it rests on Claudius, then it rests on Gertrude, but even Laertes and Polonius, all of the things that happen that lead up to this soliloquy, and it first starts, by the way, with the dismissal of an appropriate mourning for the last king and the neglect of never mentioning him as king. You see that long spelling on dear and that cap on brother? That's who he is to Claudius. Not our last king, though yet, you know, our dear brother's death, the memory be green, he says. And it us befitted, it was appropriate to mourn him, but you know what? We were reasonable. We threw sorrow away and became reasonable. And then he goes through this wordplay of opposites, and you have to make sure you make them opposite. If you just allow it, what can happen to the ear is that it can sound very much like it's appropriate with dirge and marriage, and you need to put the life and the meaning into dirge or whatever the opposite is. You've got to do that, and you have time to do it. I think a lot of times we rush, either we slow it down to a stop, and that usually happens with awful pauses that people put in where there are no commas. None of you did that, thank you. But the other thing is, I don't think we take enough time with the life of what we're saying. So we ramble through something like Claudius's speech. I always tell my students, you go so fast, you're going to have so little time on stage, and you're rushing to get off. Makes no sense to me. But at any rate, he's choosing those words on the spot. Follow me for a little bit here, because what I'm finding in the scene is this is what makes it despicable. With wisest sorrow. Wisest sorrow? Sorrow is in the heart. It's not in the brain. But we need to hear the juxtaposition of the opposites. You see? And when he says goodbye to Laertes, this is disgusting also. Laertes, what's the news with you? You told us of some suit, Laertes. What is it? You cannot speak of reason to the Dane and lose your voice. What is it? Come, and he welcomes, leave, take the time you need to take, Laertes. Do it, boy. Have a ball. He should be in the service. He should be protecting Denmark with everybody else. But he's not. He graciously is given the doors fly open, and Polonius is the one who can make the decision. Okay, that's the next step in all of it. Then, of course, as you're pointing out, Michelle, that relationship with Hamlet and the criticism, and I don't think you have to find a way to bring the hammer down on it. I think the more we concentrate on what he's saying, how he puts language together. And by the way, I also think, if you remember that little moment we had last week with me and Randy, and that moment lasted for a while when we came home, is that they're playing with words here. They're couching their what they really feel, what they want to say. They're couching it with tremendous pun, wit. It's a play. They're playing with words with each other. You know, how is the clouds? Why are you so sad? He doesn't say that. He says, how come the clouds are on you? That's an expression that he's finding that's the word. Gertrude says, cast thy knightly color off. Thy knightly color. Night, yes, because it's black, it's dark, but it also carries K-N-I-G-H-T, defender of what's wrong. They're finding words that are suitable to the moment. Now, I grant you, most of us think audiences don't listen. I can tell you that I was part of a theater company where they listened. And we told them that they never had to look at a book before they came up that hill. Every actor would know what he or she was saying. And I think if you speak these words with an understanding, they'll know what you're saying. My point being that when these words fall on the audience's ears, They will put together what Hamlet ultimately will express in that soliloquy. So the culmination of Claudius's behavior, his hypocrisy, the way he's couching all of this, and then he thanks these people for going along, his court members going along with him in shortening the mourning, in approving a marriage that never should have happened, in popping Hamlet out of the running of it completely. All of that has to be in place for Hamlet to say this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, without becoming too political right now, I think we're a nation of fear right now. A lot of us are feeling that it should come to this. I don't think there's a person on the screen, I don't care what side you're on, who does not feel in their soul that it should come to this. And that's what Hamlet, we can identify with Hamlet. We don't need to have lost the last king or our father or any of it. We know what it is to be in a situation where it is absolutely unbelievable that something you respected and loved and followed and believed in can be made into trash. And that's where we have to take this scene. Does that make sense? I know I'm passionate, but it has to be passionate. We're talking with somebody who wants to kill himself. And that's not just Hamlet being a melancholy Dane or, Freudian whatever. It has to happen on stage. We have to bring that to life. And that's the complexity of a character like Claudius. We can sit there and decide he's a clever politician, but he has an act to put on, he's one of the best actors that one could ever hope to see on stage, because he has several things to handle, and he handles all of them. I want you to also notice that he's trying to deal with Hamlet, and who comes in with 3 lines to put an end to the obstacle Hamlet's presenting to Claudius? Gertrude. Cast thy nightly coal. She sums it up. It's common for people to die. We die, and then we go to eternity. He picks it up and plays again on a word, because that word common can mean usual, or familiar, but it can also mean vulgar. And her behavior to Hamlet is vulgar. And that statement to Hamlet is vulgar. That it's particular, it's personal to him. Particular? Of course it's particular to him. It's his father. It's her husband who didn't let the winds touch her face too harshly. That's where we have to, of course, go through all of this, and word by word by word, not definition, life. Is everybody there with me, or am I?
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking,
yeah,
with everything you said, I've seen so many productions where they physically stage the Hamlet, somewhat removed. It's like he's not really listening. But I believe he listened so closely to what Claudius is saying and how he says it, and it's just churning up inside of him. Because of his position in court, he cannot say anything. He cannot do anything. And everything is just eating at him and eating at him until finally he is alone and it just spews out.
Right.
And he's trying to make sense of it all.
Right.
I think also I get the impression from reading the soliloquy that this is the first time Hamlet has seen the relationship between Gertrude and Claudius, that it's not just a king and queen, it's a man and woman. And they're very attracted to each other. There is a thing going on there. That's why with this only a month, and I think this is another thing that impels him and pushes him into these dark thoughts, these thoughts of suicide, the thoughts of this rank garden, that he has been duped on many levels. He is, they took away his inheritance in essence by saying that you are the prince. You're not the king, and he should be the king. That your mother is now your aunt. Your uncle is also now your father. I mean, it's so. I get the feeling that this was the first time he really understood what was going on between Claudius and Gertrude, and he did not agree with it at all on any level.
Yeah.
And then,
Annie, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just saying, you asked the question, what would want to happen in the scene? And I was thinking very similar to what both Larry and Chuck were saying, which is, I think about how I see it staged a lot, which is very stately. And I was thinking about the garden metaphor and just the idea of Hamlet realizing that he is surrounded by a living organism that is already working. The idea that we're not in this stately post-funeral world where people haven't started. No, I'm already in a world that the tentacles or the roots are already all out and growing. My wife or my mother and uncle are already that's already happening. The uncle's already he's already sending messengers out. He's already dealing with state business. This garden is already growing around me. You know what I mean? And I think I've never thought about how you could turn that into and again, I wish we could get up on our feet, but how that might affect the staging. And, again, I've often seen it done very stately, and I wonders about, how does that change if Claudius has his minions, or if it's moving in a way that is a little more organic or something. I don't know, just to give Hamlet something to react to.
I think you're right. I mean, I think the staging of it is we're all going to get to a point very soon where we're going to feel like we got to get up with it. Got to get up. I mean, I understand that, because the other thing that has to happen are the moments where nobody speaks but reacts. I mean, when we get to the end, when Claudius says, "How is it that the clouds still hang on you?" Hamlet says, "Not so, my lord, I'm too much in the sun." Claudius doesn't speak. He doesn't follow with a line. Gertrude has to come in. So what happens in that moment physically on stage between Claudius and Hamlet that makes Gertrude now step in? And then look what Hamlet does to seems, madam. And these are actions that a man might play. I have that within. What do you have within, mother? I have that within, which passes. He shames her. She doesn't respond. Claudius has to come in. And now he comes in with his barrage of, no, this isn't the way one deals with death, totally ignoring how quickly all of this is happening and everything else that surrounds it. He makes it Hamlet's problem. Hamlet's at fault, he says here. Not him, not Gertrude. Your behavior is the problem here. And then then refuses to let him go to Wittenberg. And then again, at the very end, we beseech you, bend you to remain here, stay here, he says. Does Hamlet say anything to him? No, which lets you know Gertrude has to come in. And that can be played out on stage so that we see both Gertrude and Claudius publicly, because they are doing this publicly, having to work on their feet to solve this obstacle that Hamlet is presenting in this court. And in the end, they win. He doesn't get to go to Wittenberg. The marriage will go through. And not only that, Claudius will celebrate it. From now on, every drink we take, we're going to just have cannons go off and celebrate. This is a wonderful response that he has given. And they leave in a celebratory way. That will impact. Oh my God, I hate this. Is disgusting. Ben, so I think the staging of it. I told Randy, the more you look at the scene, I wish that he would have the message, the pestering message from Fortinbras. Hold it in his hand. I've seen one production where he's ripped it up and he tosses so much for him. I think he has to roll it up, move it away, and now show the letter he's going to give to Norway. I also think there should be a moment when he's taken her to wife that they embrace, they kiss, they have some physical moment on stage. And it doesn't have to be, you know, throw her down and whatever. It just has to show a relationship that makes Hamlet want to just, you know, be repulsed by them touching each other at all.
And you know, can I say earlier from the soliloquy that the fact that he notices that she wears the same shoes to the wedding and the funeral, he's been watching his mother very carefully ever since he comes back. I mean, that's an incredible point of observation for me.
Yeah, right. That she didn't even throw those shoes. That's how new that everything is. And on the heel, yeah.
Same shoes, and that because that upsets him.
He also, that in that soliloquy, and I'm going to open it up now for you guys doing it. That soliloquy, when he talks about what that funeral was like, that she wept like Niobe, all tears. So the loss of old Hamlet was terribly emotional. She was weeping to the point that, you know, Niobe was turned into a stone weeping over her children, and the stone kept weeping. So he makes an association with grief that's unending. That's the grief that she showed towards the old king dying. And then within a month, you know, and the word frailty, it does mean weakness, but it also carries the meaning of vulnerability. And so when the ghost later on tells us with wicked gifts, how did Claudius seduce her? And he talks about with gifts and wit. That's how Claudius did, and she was vulnerable to them. And she was a woman who had somebody who pampered her, not let the winds touch her face. Can you see the kind of relationship that Hamlet witnessed between his parents? And if she received that within a month, she could let go of those tears she was crying and marry this man, this satyr, not even a man, worse than a man, half man, half beast. So yeah, I think, and Liz, I think that's part of the key of all of it, to pick it up and examine it. Of course, you guys, you know, when you act, it has to be thrown away, but to examine it while you're there, to see what does it touch in you, to understand what would bring Hamlet to this first moment in the play. I think if we don't have that there, what we're going to get is basically a sad Hamlet who is talks about suicide, but you would never believe for a minute he'd kill himself. It's just to, you know, and then he goes off on his outrage with Gertrude. I read an interesting note the other day about when Gielgud directed Burton, and he made sure that Burton emphasized the timing, because this is one of the very few plays that Shakespeare is quite clear on when the king died, and an approximate within a month. That briefness has got to be hammered home more than incest. And it made sense to me that I thought, yes, of course, that's something he himself says it over and over again. That how could that be? Yeah. So I think, and I love that. I love the idea of the shoes weren't even old, you know, but that's what I think you want to find, those impulses that they create in you to allow you to move into this is the first soliloquy. We got a whole play to go. You got to meet that ghost. And you can understand, as I said last week, I think to Lee, you can see why when Horatio comes into that room, it is a breath of fresh air to see, to be with someone who loved. You notice that Laertes says, I came for your coronation. Horatio says, I came to see your father's funeral. So there's Horatio coming in will have a great, but all of this leads to that. That's why we're doing this. There's no Hamlet without who's there. That's where it starts, and every line gives birth to the next line. So in this scene, everything that Claudius, Gertrude, Laertes, Polonius, Voltimand does will give birth to the soliloquy. Okay, who feels like they're ready to? Yep, Lee?
I have something I would like to bring up before we get into
Okay, I was
the
so ready for you to
soliloquy.
jump in. Go ahead.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. It's really, I can't help it. I am hooked on the puzzle of it all, and that always makes me focus on these long spellings and the punctuation and capitalizations. And when I look at this little exchange between Claudius and Laertes, they're roughly the same size line wise. I think Claudius maybe has two more lines to Laertes, but Claudius has 7 lines that end. He's got like 4 periods and 3 question marks. Laertes has 1 sentence in the whole thing. Claudius has like 8 things capitalized that are not proper nouns. Laertes just has coronation. That's the only one.
Yes, yes.
So that grabs my attention as far, once again, this, I think, addresses the playing of it. It's rhythmic to me, you know? And so Claudius has all of these mid-line periods. Well, a couple here. And then I bring it up now because in the soliloquy, Hamlet's first soliloquy, he also has. So I'm just listening to.
Yes, it's important. It's very important to start noticing all of that and then to play it. That's the next big part of it, is to play it.
I feel like it's helpful. Yeah.
What is that doing? That's why I said earlier, I mean, last week, that the folio is interpretive, as is scansion. The actor is necessary. You know, it's not something that you can write a book about, do it this way. Randy and I were talking about this today about acting classes. If any, I mean, I've done coaching for many years now, but I can tell you that I cannot promise that somebody who studies with me is going to be a great actor at the end of it. That's not my territory. I can introduce you to tools, but in the end, you're the one who's got to use them. And so that's why the folio, it's necessary. When I see dear brother's death, something happens to something happens to me. What happens to you when you see it? Now, some of you haven't lived with the folio very long, others have. But that's what you want to start feeling out there. Why would that cap? I think you hit it on the head, Lee, with the only capital in there is coronation. For Laertes. There's a flattery there. There's a kind of ticket out, but it's some kind of use of that coronation that has meaning for Laertes using it.
And also just the, you know, if you look at the fact that he says everything in one sweep.
Yes.
As 'twere, and the whole thing is about speak. Laertes, speak. You can't lose your voice. Speak. What is it? What is it? What is it? Good my lord, it's the coronation, but can I go? You know, it's again rhythmic. I didn't do that, but looking at it, you know, again.
Yes, but I think the next step is important, which is, what does the rhythmic tell you about the life?
And the relationship.
And you've actually pointed it out. What you did for me now is by saying that Claudius has these periods. He's not, Laertes not speaking. Laertes not speaking. Is he terrified? I would try that. I'm know who I'm in front of, because this is the same man who's going to give a speech to Ophelia about, you better be careful. He can't carve for himself. He has got to follow the rules. So here's where we establish Laertes having some kind of fear of Claudius, and he says, "Dread my lord," not kindly lord or anything, dread my lord. And then he does go that fast because of that, perhaps that nervous energy that says, "Here's what I want." If I can say it fast enough, maybe
Well,
I can.
and think about the next time Laertes and Claudius meet.
Yes.
If you have Laertes being a frightened mouse, of
Yeah.
Claudius this time, the next time he's holding him at sword point, isn't he?
Right. Yep. And
But
co-conspirator. Yeah.
all clues to where the character is going, and something about the moment, definitely about the circumstance of the moment. So that when we do get, and you've got anybody who's had to do Laertes and deal with thews and bulk, knows how difficult that speech is to Ophelia. But even that says something about Laertes.
It
But
does.
more than that, what happens in this scene, that's why I like the folio having Ophelia in this scene, because when the brother talks to her later and the father says, "You speak like a green girl unsifted," you almost feel like you were there. You saw what happened between Hamlet and the king. And so that they can at least come together on this. You can't just go. Now, she didn't see it. I think would be a different scene. Quarto, she's not in that first scene. But I think again, folio came later, and I wonder if they made that choice. Anything else before we start heading into?
Yeah, one thing is that I was even thinking that Laertes was coached by Polonius. So he's actually somewhat reciting a prepared speech. His dad said, "Now, this is what you say to our dread lord," And so he's kind of, that also puts pressure, is because he's trying to perform something that's not really in him, that his father is making him do. I think that also makes for more discomfort.
Now, let me add to that, okay, we have an idea, but what we have to do on stage is the thing that, because audiences can't read minds. So, you have that perspective on it, but we'd almost have to do, and I'm not offering this as a solution, but think about it. You'd have to have Polonius start mouthing them as Laertes is doing it. Then on stage, the audience sees the thing you're saying. Otherwise, it's just up to them to decide. Everything you need, I believe, everything that idea you come up with, you need to use, you have to do it on stage to tell that story to an audience. That's our job. It's to tell that story. I wouldn't just leave it up to them to think, "Oh, I bet the father I don't think they'll make that decision." All of this stuff is a nanosecond compared to where we're going with the play. But again, Michelle, it's possible that we leave the theater and somebody, pulls you aside and says, "You know what, I think the father did." But that we have to tell the story. And so if you have that idea, I think what you have to ask yourself is, how do I do it so I make it clear to the audience? And once again, we're with the nonverbal moments that we add to it. So how do I tell that story clearly? And it may be, something as simple as that. Make sense?
Oh, I think Claudius just loves being called dread. He loves words, like he loves being thought of in those manners, in that way. And Polonius knows it. Polonius being perhaps the most consummate of all the politicians here. And yeah, I can see that totally, where he's coaching Laertes, Yeah, he doesn't want him to go off to Norway.
Michelle, you've just created a monster. Chuck now is going to take this and fly with it.
I don't want to get us off on a tangent, but this has all got me thinking very much about how old is Hamlet, that he's old enough to be off to university, and yet, as either Ben or Lee said, he's Prince Hamlet. He's not the one who gets to be king at this point. Other than that he's off to school in Wittenberg, is there anything that you would see in here that gives us more of a clue? Is he young enough that Gertrude might still be a childbearing age? Or
wait, hold on, because we're going to be told later on in the play that he's 30. And we know that Burbage was in his 30s when he played Hamlet.
So that ought to be old enough that why is he not king? I mean, other than the way things are done in Denmark at this time, but
Absolutely. And later on, Hamlet will have a line about it popped in between me and my hopes. So it's not that Hamlet is saying, oh, no, I don't want to be king. That's not for me. Hamlet understands he's a prince. That's why the title is The Tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. He's a prince. He's entitled to at least be considered. The reason Hamlet is not king, if you look at the idea of an elective monarchy, all right, is that an elective monarchy is you need the approval of certain members of the court to approve the king. However, most kings were approved by the former king. Most heirs became king. There would have to be some major reason that Hamlet was not accepted. The problem here is that Hamlet wasn't there when his father died. If you look at the source material, you will see that old Hamlet's brother put together a group of men, to a group of court political leader, I mean, court leaders who would back him. I have this one little quote that, let's see if this resonates with you guys, because this comes right out of Saxo Grammaticus and the choice that Claudius makes for this court, and how he chose. What it says in the source material is that the Claudius character gathered about him a court where, and he said, and they say it was common where fools are sometimes favored and backbiters preferred. And Claudius gathered, does sound familiar? That's who Claudius had joined him. Now, that's not in this play, but what we do get in the play is the approval that you all went along. We didn't bar your opinion. We all,
For all your
went along with
thanks.
this.
Yeah.
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 So it's an important point, I think. The other thing I wanted you all to know about the source material is, because of the shortness of time in the play, is that character of the Claudius character in Saxo already had designs on the queen. He was jealous of the character of old Hamlet. And so that's one of the reasons that he went through with the murder of his brother. Interestingly enough, Claudius in his prayer speech will say the three things that that made him go for this was his ambition, the crown, and his queen. So he had designs on Gertrude before the murder took place, and he will admit that in the prayer scene. So that's why he will already have devised a way to win her over. Okay.
A quick question, Annie. How are
Mhm.
you using the crowd reaction to Claudius's long speech? The court.
You mean which one? The final?
Oh, you had of Hamlet, our dear brother's death, the memory be green.
It's very funny you should ask. I listened to the tape of our APT production. We were applauding all over the place. Every time Claudius finished the sentence, we applauded. And I don't know, Jim. I would try it. It seemed to be appropriate at some moments. The problem I found with it, this sounds crazy, but the problem I found with it, it was just so weak. It was just this kind of 5 or 6 lords applauding, didn't do what I think we had hoped it would. But I'd have to see it on its feet and to see what the appropriate response would be. I wouldn't be against it, though. I think the more we can tell the story of these men backing him, I think the clearer the story becomes.
And it is a first event for these people,
That's right.
for the court, to
That's
have
right.
Claudius. This is his first moment. We
Yeah.
all understand that to be true. So
Yeah,
their reactions to him, I think, are not based so much in background psychology, but in the immediate moment of, this is feckin' weird. 7.5 weeks ago, the other guy would have been standing next to her up there. And so it's got to just the out of place nature of Claudius being there and having to win that position, own that position, take it over.
Well, and to your point, Lee, like out of place nature, like this whole, from Hamlet's perspective, this whole world is wrong. Like
Right.
nothing is the rule of order here, right? So from his perspective, and nobody comes to
Out
his
of joint.
aid. Nobody says, of course you're sad. Of course, even his mother, like, so
You're
all
not
of that
losing
just
your
keeps
mind.
building and building, and there's no, you feel like you're the only, I'm in a whole other universe than the rest of these people, you know?
Yep.
Mhm.
That's right. Okay, we're there. Any takers for that soliloquy? Or do I just pick? Anybody? Lee, you ready?
Being pestered by a fly.
Oh, well, it
Yes,
may
I
be
am.
very
Yeah, I'd be
simple.
happy to go.
Good.
That sounds perfect, actually. It's almost like an audition hitting us one cold.
Yeah, you better be good.
Thank you. Oh my. Can we read into it a little bit? No.
Lee,
Yeah, Randy.
can you turn your volume up a little bit?
Yeah, is that
I don't
better?
want to miss anything that comes out of your mouth.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
It is? Okay,
Yeah.
because I've got a mic here. So this is going well. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon 'gainst self-slaughter. Oh God. Oh God. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seems to me all the uses of this world. Fie, aunt? Oh, fie! Fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. Not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? She would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month. Let me not think on't. Frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, where'er those shoes were old, with which she followed my poor father's body like Niobe, all tears. Was she, even she, oh heaven, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. O most wicked speed, to boast with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Good. What did you find out in doing it?
Find out?
Yeah, for yourself,
I don't
just for
know.
yourself and it's fine if you didn't, you know, I'm just curious. I'm always curious when somebody acts something
Get a good walk.
and try to get into their shoes for a minute.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a certain unnatural quality to trying to plunge into a speech like this way, and
Yes, yes.
with the focus being on a number of things, so I'm trying to use the structure of the grammar, etc., as a guide, and just
I can tell you one
plunge
thing
and
that
discover,
did for me
you know.
that I had never really heard quite clearly before was the progression, that at the end it becomes quite ugly, that the description of, you know, following his body, all tears. And then as you went on, what happened was there was this real sense of how wicked speed, incestuous sheets, that it culminated into my ear of a build in it that had to do that the more he talked about it and the more that he thought about it, the worse the sin became. So it went from frailty, thy name is woman, to the more you kept saying a little month, a little month, a little, and then look at your last, could you just do those last 3 lines? You don't have to worry about acting the hell out of it. I'm just saying the content of it.
Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets.
Yes, and the line before that.
Oh, within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married.
Yes.
Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets.
Yes, you hear that? Galled eyes, right, most unrighteous tears, wicked. All of a sudden, it becomes her sin just escalated. At least that's what in your rendering, Earl, that's what started to happen to my ear, was that, okay, he has worked himself even further than the grief and, you know, the reaction to the world that he's in, to something that was very, very disturbing about his relationship now to what his mother did. And the reason I bring it up is this might be the key to how he treats her in the play, within the play, and how he treats her in the closet scene. That it's not no longer, yes, madam, it's common. Now it's become something even greater. Just think about it.
So just in pursuing what you're pursuing, I think, and you were asking what I was thinking, and then you keyed in on this section. And as you spoke, I was in the presence of what I was thinking, which is funny, retroactively. When I got to why even she, and then that parenthetical, I mean, that's a wild construction right there. The parentheses, the O, the capital heaven, the exclamation point, you know, all of that. I decided not to take it up. It would have been too much like me to blast it. But a beast, oh heaven, and then the juxtaposition of heaven and beast to me is all of a sudden that it is dark. It is dark. His thoughts do kind of surrender to the darkness of this transgression, you know, of this situation, in a way that the earlier part doesn't really allude to.
Right. That's
Do you know what I
exactly
mean?
referring to, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it starts to unfold just maybe a couple of lines for me with the word beast.
And it's interesting because when you look at that, like Niobe, all tears, why she, even she, period. It's almost as if you feel he's going to add something to it, but he has, then you get to that parentheses that goes to that, oh heaven, with the exclamation, which cuts in himself off, even though, you know, the period is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a beast that wants a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Yeah. That's a wonderful, and I think that that's something that's overlooked sometimes with Shakespeare, is characters get jumbled in their own delivery, that a thought comes in, you know, it's not all straight across the board, that here's what I'm going to say, and I say it, that he's wonderful in that he shows the upset by how a line gets cut off and something gets put in, you know, it really brings their emotion right to the table. I think it's quite wonderful. Me saying that Shakespeare is quite wonderful, that's perfect. Okay, let's, yeah.
Well
I just
done,
wanted to
Elizabeth.
say,
Well,
I just wanted to say that what I really got from the reading and really heard very well was there was an obsession in the thoughts. It's sort of like when you try not to think of something, but it keeps coming back and coming back. And so that repetition of a month, he's trying to stuff some of it down, and it just keeps coming back stronger and stronger. And so it really sounds obsessive. And I thought that brought a lot for me to the
And I
character.
think what you're pointing out leads to that one moment that, if you call it obsession, but this idea of month, heaven and earth, must I remember? The thoughts are coming to him. He is not generated. The emotion is there. The feelings are there. He'd love it to go away. But when he says, heaven and earth, must I remember? But it comes flooding into him. He can't even control what he's experienced, what he's seeing. And then, of course, the idea of all of those wonderful things that his father was to her, and yet within a month. And the more he says that to the audience, the more he shares that with the audience, the more we understand how brief this is. This isn't just a fixation of Hamlet. Think of your own life. Think of your own loved one that you know, that you may have, maybe it happened in the past, or just the thought of someone. How many times have you heard someone who's lost someone say, my life is over? When you love someone that deeply, you don't just say, who's at the door? Come on in. You know, and this happens to be, even though nobody's mentioning it in that first scene, this happens to be not only a king, but Horatio tells us that he was this side of the known world has known him as honorable, as noble. Hamlet refers to him as Hyperion. And I know people have said, well, that's just Hamlet. But Hamlet doesn't make that, he says, as I to Hercules. So he looks at himself as diminished, but he sees his father as something was very worthy. This is also a king who did not have a war in 30 years. He hasn't been in that armor since he slew Fortinbras. He's provided peace to Denmark. This must have been some amazing man. And he's being forgotten. So I think that, I think all of that within a month, I think you're right, Michelle, it becomes something that's so hard to understand for Hamlet. Ben, are you
Lee.
ready to act? Oh, sorry.
Lee, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
That
go
was
ahead.
very moving. It brought back memories of 1987 when you did it. And I know you did it again at APT in the 90s. When did you do it the third time?
I did it in at Wisconsin Shakes.
Was that before APT?
That was actually after the one that we did together.
So you did it at APT, then Wisconsin, then back at APT.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, Randy was good, and Annie were good enough to share the role with me for.
I'm sorry, Annie. I just got a little emotionally caught up, I'm afraid.
That's funny, Jim. I'm sorting through some papers in the basement right now, and one of them was a card from you when we did Hamlet together.
Oh, when I said I owed you money, I remember now.
That was the one. Yeah. So I'm here.
Okay. We have to stay in the mood here.
All right, let's move on.
Ben, can I impose? What, did Ben disappear? Where is he? He's gone. He left us. Okay. Let's see. Michelle, you want to try it?
Sure. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seems to me all the uses of this world. I on it. Oh, fie, fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this, but 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet, within a month, oh, let me not think on it. Frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body like Niobe, all tears. Why, she, even she, oh, heaven, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with mine uncle, my father's brother. Oh, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, or I must hold my tongue.
Yeah. Good. The thing that I want to point out now is that, well, let me ask you, let me start with you. What did you learn from it?
Michelle, your mic is off.
Oh, there we go. What was weird was that it felt like a flood for me. It's like I just feel like it was like a dam breaking, that I felt very much the fact that Hamlet has been, trying to hold his tongue during the preceding scene, and then once he's alone, it just keeps coming out and coming out and coming out. And one of the things is that, there is the kind of the trope, which I'm thinking is not really correct, about the melancholy Dane. I think he's a very angry Dane.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, as you work on it and you take a look at, and this is for everybody as well, when you look at these soliloquies, you can start to see how, if you're not careful, sound can become more important than words. And I think that you were feeling, I'm going to make the assumption that you were feeling it as you were doing it, but it becomes tortured. And all I start to feel is, okay, he's tortured, and it doesn't matter what he says because I'm hearing, and if that's the case, I don't need words. So what I would suggest to you is to see how it progresses, see how, and I think you were working on that obsession of a little month. I think that this happens a lot, I find, with actors. We tend to have a feeling about what the character is going through, and then we code it, not intentionally, but it happens. We code it with angst, sorrow, and so the voice takes on, you know, I mean, I remember doing a production of Titus Andronicus in New York, and the woman was playing Tamara. She had the word mother, and she said, mother. And I said, say it again. And she said, mother. I said, no, wait, can you do one more? Mother. And I said, what, I don't understand. You keep romancing it. You're kneading it like bread now. What's the word? What's the word? And she got so frustrated because I did it about 15 times. I had to do it. And she got so angry with it. She said, God damn it, Annie, the word's mother. I said, okay, we have a place to start.
So letting the words carry the meaning, letting the words carry more of the meaning.
They should also ultimately influence the feeling. Because that's what it has to work through the word to the action to the word. They have to marry each other.
Yeah,
and I think when we're doing emotional pieces in particular, we tend to not want to disappoint. And so we go for the emotion before we allow it to come. But you know, and as I said, I think the effort, it was absolutely sincere, but I think as you move forward, my suggestion would be is to allow more of what you're saying to influence how you're feeling. Does that make sense?
I understand. I think I understand. Yeah, that's very good advice.
Who else? Who hasn't gone? Yeah, Lee.
Could I just say something? Sorry, but we're discovering things and they're impressing me. But when you mentioned that I'd be reading Laertes, I wasn't sure if you meant this scene or the next one, so I was looking at that a little bit. Can you hear me okay? And Laertes just impresses upon Ophelia that Hamlet cannot carve for himself. He's of the court and he must, and he goes into great length to reinforce that thought. In the court scene, we hear about duty, obedience, that kind of thing, station, all of that. Hamlet finishes, break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. So having just really come into contact with those in the last few hours, it makes me kind of understand even more poignantly, I think, just the pressure he is under and the restriction. He can't go back. He's a prisoner. He can't go back to Wittenberg. He blah blah blah. So this little moment of being alone is, as all of them are.
And I want to add to that before I forget, and that is, you're alone, but you have a partner in this, and that partner is the audience. So I think the more you allow that partner in, the less personally distraught, or here's what I'm feeling and nothing else matters. But I think the sharing of it becomes, you know, Stella used to say that you have, what it is that the character has the thought and is sharing privately, publicly, a private thought with the public. It's not an easy thing to do, but I think it makes, for me, what happens is having that audience as a member of or partner in this will keep us from just going off into, I have to be emotional Hamlet, because there's a job to do, and that job is also bringing that audience, sharing those thoughts with an audience. So, and we didn't talk very much about that, so I wanted to make sure I had added that. Ben's back.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Just happening every week at this time. I'm gonna have to find a new place to do this.
As the time ticks, would you do Hamlet for us?
Absolutely, sure. And I think you were all just talking about the thing that I wanted to bring up, which was talking to the audience, but let's just do it. And yeah, great.
Yep.
Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie on't! Oh, fie, fie! 'Tis an unweeded garden that goes to
Oh, he froze. Okay, Ben froze, folks, so.
once dead. Nay, not so much, not too. So excellent a king, that was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? Why, she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month? Let me not think on't. Frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body like Niobe, all tears, why she, even she, oh heaven, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer, married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules, within a month? Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets! It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Good. What did you get from it?
Oh, the usual nerves, second guessing, doubt, fear, all of those things, which I just want to be honest, I find so helpful to have an audience to look at in doing all those things. It helps so many of those fears go away from me because I'm dealing with real faces, and responding. And so for the same reason I'm not a fan of doing some of these soliloquies as audition material. It is very awkward to sort of throw it out into the empty space without those eyes that either, for me, either they're looking at me like, what are you doing up there? You don't deserve to be playing Hamlet. And that's a fun thing to play against, or they're friendly or something like, but that is to me such an important piece so you asked how it went. It's hard for me to know without that, because then I'm left analyzing my own speaking, which is such a terrible sort of thing to do. Oh, I didn't like the way I hit that word, or I sound like an asshole, or
yeah, and I'm not looking for that. I don't want you to, and that's something you can do. Those the creativity path that one takes. Preparation. The last thing is verification. And so that verification is when you leave the stage, you go home that night, and Randy and I do this all the time. That's when you talk about, that moment or what that felt like. You're almost too close to it when you're doing it, to think that way. I'm asking it just in case someone along the line has had some kind, since you've played Hamlet, Lee's played Hamlet. I'm curious about, has something new happened for you, that kind of thing, not an analysis of.
Yeah, it's interesting, just trying to taste the language a little differently without the pressure of, of performing the whole thing or anything like that. And I don't remember if we cut anything out of this. This feels like we left this one intact. I think we left most of those. And, I was thinking about just how you talk about how it gets a little vicious at the end. And just and there was some talk of the rhythms earlier. Lee and I had talked about a sort of off pod about that a little bit, about the way that we sort of respond to the rhythms of these things. And I feel like you have to slow down, at least I do, because I can't. I'm a fast talker, as most of the people in this chat know, and I like to move things along pretty quick.
Yeah.
Places in
Actually,
language where
on that note, I would say that I would even slow you down more.
Yeah.
Um,
And at the end, you can't even get your mouth around those words. At least I can't, unless I have to slow down a little bit. Yeah.
I think the thing that, and again, when I give a note to one of you, I'm hoping that everybody takes this in. I think if you could, as an exercise, and when you do it, see how it impacts it. But I'm finding that what happens is lines like Hyperion to a satyr feels as if, well, I say that all the time. We all know Hyperion to a satyr. Rather than finding that Hyperion to a satyr, you have more time to live the word. And it may you might get slow in the working of it, and then you may want to pull it together as we move forward. But right now, again, the emotion becomes the most important thing, and the finding of the right word disappears. It's as if it's so natural to say, I call everybody a satyr. I call everybody Hyperion. Oh yeah, I'm Hercules. And you need, those are words that when we make comparisons, we do that all the time. Whereas we have to find the word that describes the thing we're talking about. I would just pay a little attention to that. The other thing that I think for everybody, if you look at the very first line, oh, that this too solid flesh, that's where the cap falls. There's no punctuation in that line other than that cap on flesh, and then there's a comma. So what happens to my ear from a lot of this is that I hear, oh, that this too solid. If you stress everything, the capital doesn't count. It doesn't matter because you're already stressing everything. In order for the cap to work, you have to see or a long spell, any of it. You've got to let normal spellings be normal. Then you'll see where it goes. Oh, that this too solid flesh. And then a comma. Remember, everything before a comma is all you expect to say. Flesh would melt. He thinks of it after the comma, right on the comma. It's not something I've already decided that this flesh would melt, according to the folio. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt. Thought, I have it right in front of me. And look at how the melt ends the line. And then there's another comma ready for you to think. Thaw and resolve it. So what's so important is it resolve. Resolve is important. That's what will make it okay. Not each one of them. It's going to lead to, that's what he's looking for, resolution. That's what's important about the flesh melting and thawing, is the resolution at the end of it. So, Ben, I would start to look at those commas and how they initiate the next thing you're going to say. And all of you, don't obligate yourself. I know it's hard, believe me, I know, and I'm the worst offender of it when I act. But don't obligate yourself to a finished emotion. Let's work towards discovering what that might be. Otherwise, I'm telling you, this will come out as an overall sad, angry, we'll put any word onto it that you want, and the words won't count. And what will happen is what's happening all over the world, they will get cut. We don't need them. What do you need words for? I'll grunt. So I just want you to be conscious of that. We have enough time for two more. Larry, you're up.
Okay. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon against self-slaughter. Oh, God. God. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie on it. Oh, fie. Is an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to this. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. Not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion, to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteen the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? Why, she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet within a month, that be nothing, God. Frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Niobe, all tears. Why, she, even she, oh, heaven, a beast that once discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month. Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets, it is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Okay. Okay, here's one of the one of the little tips that I want to give you, and that is, and again, everybody should pay attention to this, is when you hit the end of a line, let a new thought be established, because what you're doing now to my ear is the line finished and you're immediately jumping into the next line. But he gives you room. He gives you room in here. And of course, the scansion will give you room also, but I don't even want to discuss that because, you know, I don't want to even get into the lessons of it. Although I think one of the things that's happening is that we're not getting the sense of the finished line. His canon against self-slaughter is folio, period. Oh God, how weary. It's a new thought. How weary, as opposed to, oh God, how weary. So we ramble through periods. Take a look at them and let a new thought be established. The other thing that with the comma, and you were doing the follow, but you're taking so much time, it might as well have been a period. So we get how stale, flat, you know, rather than the thought has to happen quickly. how stale, flat, unprofitable, and you'll see it'll tumble rather than stop, stop, stop. So it's things like that. Listen, anybody who's interested, I know Jim and I are going to work, anybody who's interested in looking at the folio privately or as a session, I am ready, because this is gold. This folio really is gold. And I think that we have a notion of how it may work, but I don't think you're really working it for all it's worth. So I'd love to, I'd love to help people hear what a long spelling is. What a cap on one word in a sentence is, what a period is. Period checks in. That if when you're dealing with the audience, that might be the very moment you use to check in with the audience, because that period, remember, is the thing to see what I said, how what I said landed. Did it land? That kind of thing. And again, listen, you're all I think if we get nothing out of this, it's how tough these soliloquies are. Because we're so obligated, and a famous play, a famous character, Morris in his book always, he would say, who do you want to see on stage play Hamlet? Not Mel Gibson, don't put a name to it, but what is your expectation when you walk into that theater? What is it that you expect from the actor playing Hamlet? And he would say, because if you can decide that, then you have to start becoming that. And I don't think we think of that very often. But I think what happens so often is that sound of emotion, that obligation to emote. And again, I hate directors who say don't act, or do these pet phrases. I hate them. And that's not what I'm saying to you. But I am saying to you to try to let it happen. Give yourself that gift of trying to let it happen rather than obligating yourself to make it happen. And I hope, again, with all due respect, I know you're actors. I'm an actress myself. So, but I also know it's necessary for all of us to allow ourselves that. And I think you'll start to make discoveries. Randy, are you ready?
Scary as hell. Such good
Why,
rendering.
you only have 65 different instructions ahead of you.
They were wonderful. Okay. Ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon 'gainst self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie on it, ah, fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed things rank and gross in nature possessed merely. That it should come to this, but 2 months dead. Nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king, that was to this Hyperion, to a satyr, so loving to my mother, that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly, or heaven and earth must I remember. Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet, within a month, let me not think on it, frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which he followed my poor father's body like Niobe, all tears, Why, even she. God heavens. A beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer. Married with mine uncle, my father's brother. But no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes, she married. Most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Can you, now I'm going to ask the same damn question. What did you get out of it?
I suppose his disbelief that it's all come to this. It's come to this. Yeah. A world that's where proper mourning isn't given to a good king, where a woman who supposedly loved her husband passionately marries another man, his brother, within a month. It just morally, ethically doesn't make any sense. It's like the world is upside down. Nothing is what it should be.
Yeah. And I think the other thing along those lines that I think that you're heading to something that I was thinking also is that he has to figure it out. There's a sense of also figuring it. It's not just crying about it.
Right.
It's how is it possible?
Right.
You know, and that's why I think, and I think we do that. We go over ideas of how is I remember when he did this, so how could he do that? You know,
Right.
I think that's a big part of it as well. I do want to say one word about break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
Yeah.
One of the things that we learn about Hamlet from this soliloquy is, number one, the fact that he won't kill himself because God forbids it
Yes.
makes him religious. He's a
Yeah.
believer. So when he meets that ghost, he's coming with an understanding of the afterlife. He's coming with a belief system.
Yeah.
in God. Look at how many he says, oh God, oh God, oh heaven, heaven and earth. He's a believer. He's not an atheist.
Right.
That's number one. And the other thing he believes in is the court. He believes in the way one one becomes a prince, a king, the governing that we have, which is what has been destroyed, what has been the garden that has grown to seed, doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing that you can count on. All of the rules have been broken. Oh my God,
What
when I
does it
say this,
mean?
or I get chills. But so I think that's another part of the discovery. But the idea that break my heart, for I must hold my tongue, borders on treason. He would have to make a formal statement about opposing Claudius as king and the marriage to Gertrude, because Claudius would not be king if he wasn't married to Gertrude.
Right.
And so that's why his heart is broken. And what comes out of all of it is, this is what he would have loved to have said in court.
Yeah.
This is the truth. This is what I know, I feel, I've seen, I've observed. This is that moment. This is all of the things he couldn't say in that court.
Right.
And I think that's what culminates in, but break my heart, for
Wow.
I can't say anything.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, we have, I think, like 15 minutes. You can put your cameras on and we can take it from there. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, Annie, it's just there's a little picky thing that I'd noticed earlier on, just before the soliloquy, when the Queen says, "Let not thy mother lose thy prayers, Hamlet, I prithee stay with us, go not to Wittenberg." Hamlet says, "I shall in all my best," but ba-bum is silent, and then "obey you, madam," and then it's silence. And I mean, I think it's a wonderful moment because "I shall in all my best." He's not yet sure he's going to obey her, so he comes to that conclusion. And maybe the king is that point is saying, doesn't know quite how to react, which is why he doesn't come in immediately with "why 'tis a loving and a fair reply." I love stuff like that, so I've just picked up on that.
That's great. And those, I mean, those are the discoveries and that's why we want to put it on its feet, because you want to see that those
Yeah.
moments come to life. What is
Yeah.
happening? And what, you know, and even I thought you were going to say, because I think this is a part of it too. "I shall in all my best obey you, madam." Not you collectively. He leaves the king out of that. And "in my best." You know, that's another moment there. He doesn't say, "I absolutely will stay."
No.
You know, I will try to obey you. And that's when I think Claudius takes it as publicly that it's a yes. I'll take it as a yes, and I'll celebrate it. I don't want any more to talk about it. I also noticed, Liz, I don't know if you noticed this too, is that he has to ask her twice. I don't know if Lee brought this up the other day, but he has to ask her twice. "Come away, girl," and then at the end, "come away." So once again, you're wondering, does she stay with Hamlet, looking at him lovingly, or hoping something more will happen between the two? You know, it's up for grabs, because we'd have to stage it. But he does say it twice. He says "come away" in the other scenes as well.
Yes, and often she doesn't always follow immediately. Sometimes says it twice. And yeah.
Right. That's right. There's a wonderful book that I read recently, and it's called "The Women in Shakespeare's Plays." And there's a whole chapter on Gertrude and Ophelia. And one of the things that the writer talks about is the various functions that Gertrude has to play, that she's queen, she's mother, she's widow, and to figure out in any given moment what she is, but to also see her progression. And her progression will lead to her final line, which is, "I will not obey you." When Claudius says, "Do not,"
I will, my lord.
says, "Pardon me, I will." She's made a decision. If you see before that, you see her willing to at least go with Hamlet when she says to Hamlet, "I won't say a word about this." She then convinces he's mad. She doesn't say to Claudius he's not mad. You see her progression. And the final moment is, "I will drink." She refuses to follow him, Claudius, completely. So I think to keep seeing these characters where they go in the play becomes very, very exciting. It's an exciting journey for every one of them.
Who wrote that book, by the way?
What's her name? Irene. I'll get it to you and I'll email it to you. I just picked.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else who's been observing, notice anything they want to add to it? No, everybody's, oh, good. Ezra, hi.
I love how Hamlet takes so many lines to get to the point of what really has upset him. He really doesn't come to it until the end of the speech. "She married with mine uncle." And it all leads up to that. It's just, and the way he goes through it, and his imagination that you get to see how active and agile a mind he has by how he weaves and wends his way through to that point.
Yes, and I think one of the reasons that happens is that the first thing he tackles is this world. That's what he's just stepped out of. It's larger than his mother. It will come down to his mother, but it starts with the world he's living in, a court that went along with Claudius, a kind of covering up of the king's death. All of that stuff that he's talking about is a thing that he says grows to see. This garden is a metaphor for life in literature. So this life is grown to see. Then it starts to get specific. And you're right, that's the thing that disturbs him, I think, out of everything the most, is how could it be my mother? Because even though he loved his father, I think it's fair to say he loved his mother, or certainly one can say loves his mother. It's not a one-sided deal here that I love my father and I don't love you. I mean, Freud, fine, you can go on your search. But the thing here is, this is a young man who, I said to Randy the other day, he's coming from such a wonderful world. He goes to the theater. You know, he's at school and he's free to stay at school. Nobody's pulling him. The only thing pulled him home was was the funeral. He's a father that he loved. Brilliant, wonderful father, a loving mother who showed a relationship that was, the two of them together was an ideal relationship. So that's what he's coming from. You know, the idea of tragedy being when your nature collides with circumstance and how you deal with those circumstances. Oh, cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. Because I was a scholar, you know, Ophelia calls him a soldier. Wonderful life. We should all be that privileged as Hamlet was, until all of a sudden this happens. And it's not such a wonderful life anymore. So, anybody else? No. Nathan's back. He's going to tell me it's time.
You're doing great, Annie. I haven't needed to say anything the whole time. You just you have this wonderful internal clock that knows when to stop.
That's because I have to feed Randy at 6. So.
Oh, okay. Is he scratching at his cage door? Is that how you hear?
That's it.
Yeah. No, this has been just so exciting. You know, you can kind of pick whatever metaphor you like, but it's this idea of like we're just kind of whittling away at the speed and just like making it more and more refined by having each person work on it. And what I enjoy about that, you know, by having one actor, you know, work on one speech over and over, it's so easy. Ben kind of alluded to this, that you can get in your head and you're not necessarily hearing everything and letting things land by having different actors perform it. You know, I think overall we're getting more of those ideas are sinking in, kind of in real time. Not to say that it's finished by any means, but I think there's just so much great progress has been made. And what Lee was bringing up about Laertes, it's so exciting that, you know, when you have another set of eyes on a part that, you know, in a more traditional play, well, Lee would be playing Claudius or Polonius or something like that. He probably wouldn't be playing Laertes, but by having Lee, you know, have the time and his experience look at the part, we get all these other ideas and discoveries, which I think is so exciting that, you know, it just takes, you know, kind of takes a village to get through these scenes and soliloquies. So, no, from my vantage, it's been really, really exciting, and just how the clarity, Annie, that you have with the speech of like what he's wrestling with, Hamlet is wrestling with, and, you know, just how could this happen? I'll try not to go on too much longer, but it's just been really wonderful to listen to and have such clarity brought to this the scene and the speech. So thank you, all of you, for what you've been contributing this week.
I want to add to that our thanks. Randy and I are having a wonderful time. We're so pleased that you guys are. I mean, I know you have lives probably far more interesting than the life we live, and so we were able to just jump in and spend so much time on this. So I thank you for finding time in your schedule to join us. I also want to say that after next week, because next week, of course, is Horatio, Marcellus, Hamlet, Barnardo and Hamlet. But after next week, if you can start looking at your schedules for the next one, because now we are going to start to ask those of you who sat here to participate in the acting of what's ahead. And so the more I know a little bit about schedules, the easier it is for Randy and I to decide how we can move and feel, do some kind of casting. And as we will keep switching roles. I thought it was wonderful to hear the women today, by the way.
Yes.
Because I thought the weakness in Hamlet that Claudius refers to I thought we came close to it in hearing a woman speak it. For those of you who know that I'm not a great fan, Nathan knows this, a great fan of changing parts. I mean, and I can get into that argument later in terms of gender and all of that. But I want to say that I got a lot out of hearing the two of you take on both those roles, and as actresses, because I thought you both brought something different to it. And Randy, I thought you were a nifty Gertrude. I thought you were.
Hey, great.
You were okay, girl. But at any rate, so that's what we're moving ahead with. I mean, I think Nathan's out of his mind to think that we'll get through the whole play. I don't know if Randy and I will live long enough, but we're going to give it a try. It's very, very exciting.
It absolutely is.
And let me know if you want to do the folio, then text me or email me and we'll set something up. Okay.
Yeah, and I want to say I so appreciate Annie and Randy being so generous with their time, not only in these sessions but outside of that, being willing to work. As they said, they do nothing else. So I really appreciate that they're so generous with their time. Two things, just as they mentioned, we will do our best to involve as many people in the scenes, but of course we'll reach a point of diminishing returns if we try to involve everybody reading in every scene. So Annie and Randy and I have talked about this. They ran a theater. They know sometimes you just have to, you got to draw the line somewhere. So, but we are keeping, we do want to keep as many people in mind as possible. And with any luck, I was thinking about this today. This is one of those projects that we have an idea of where we're going, but you don't really know what it's going to be or how it's going to. So you just keep plodding along and just kind of doing the next line in front of you, and we'll see. Hopefully that will get us to the end of the play. But yes, I'm grateful to have something this ambitious and large. But every time I show up for these sessions, they're just so fun, and I learn so much. So I hope all of you are having the same kind of experience. But I think that's good for this week, unless anyone has any final questions or comments or anything like that. But otherwise, we'll see you all next week for our final session for this scene. And again, thank you all so much for your great work this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.